G'day, I'm Ian from Sanyu, where we make Tasmanian Baijiu. I'm here in our aging cellar where we have our traditional clay pots aging our traditional Tasmanian made Baijiu. We make our Baijiu 100% in Tasmania from end to end. That means we use red sorghum from New South Wales, we use wheat from Tasmania, we use water from Tasmania, and then we follow the traditional Chinese methods that we learned in China. I'll tell you a bit more about Sanyu down the track, but we're in the cellar and we're waiting for this Baijiu to turn 5 years old. And while we wait, I thought I might do some tastings of the traditional Baijius that are available and learn a little bit about them. I'll raid my personal collection, which is sitting next to me. I'll show you a video of that. I'll cut a video of that in. Yeah, and just do a bit of a tasting and a bit of the history and background of Baijiu and how it's made and how we fell in love with Baijiu. And hopefully I can get you also to fall in love with Baijiu and perhaps fall in love with Sanyu. So the first obvious starting point for tasting Baijius is this brand here. So this is the most famous brand of Baijiu that exists, pronounced Moutai or Moutai. Moutai or Moutai. If you're a white guy, just give it a try. And Moutai is the most prolific brand of Baijiu that exists. On the Chinese stock exchange, Moutai is the highest trading value stock. It's extremely prestigious. And Moutai is actually a town in China. And it's where we learned to make our Baijiu. We didn't learn to make it at the main distillery, but instead we learned to make it at a sort of a smaller factory that was next door to it, owned by the Wang family. And we're extremely thankful to them for their education. So Baijiu making is like the opposite of making any other Western spirit. In the process of making Moutai, they do it as a year vintage. So all of their fermentation is solid state and all of their distillation is solid state. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. But basically, in the process of making Baijiu, you have to make a starter, which is called chu, or in Mautai's case, da chu, which means large chu, which is basically a large block of wheat or grains, doesn't have to be wheat, depends on the style, of grains that's been effectively let go mouldy but in a controlled environment. And then that chu is turned to powder, and that's really your starter. It's almost like your inoculant or your sourdough starter for the fermentation process. The main grain used in Moutai is red sorghum, which is by far the most used grain. Often people think about Chinese wine or Baijiu as based on rice, which it can be, but that's mostly the southern region. So Moutai uses local red sorghum. It uses wheat as its chu, and also very important is the river that runs through the province through Moutai. And so they value their water very strongly on the Yangtze River. So the process of making Moutai style, so this is what you would call a sauce aroma Baijiu. The most famous style of sauce aroma Baijiu, or the most famous brand, is Moutai. Is done in a year vintage. So at the start of the year, they'll make their chu, their big batch of chu, which is really their starter, and then they start off basically a year vintage of one set of grains. So they take their red sorghum, soak it and steam it so it's soft but not broken down, so it's sort of like the consistency of cooked rice. They take that softened grain, let it cool down, add their powdered chu, mix all that up, pop that into their fermentation pit, which is a pit that sits in the ground, which is mud brick lined, or it's almost like mud stone lined pits that are holding about 12 tonne of grain at a time. They seal that with rice hulls and mud to keep the air out, oxygen out during the fermentation. And then after, depending on the distillery, like 30 to 90 days, they remove that grain from the pit and put it into their still, which is more like a Moutai or a Baijiu, a traditional solid state fermentation, distillation still, is more like a dumpling steamer where it's in multiple parts. There's steam delivered into the bottom. In the middle section is your solid grain, which is still the consistency of cooked rice. And then from that, it's caught into a hood and into a line arm and into a high flow condenser for a very rapid distillation. A distillation of Moutai, the time for the hearts is like half an hour. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but your still is running per batch about an hour and a half to 2 hours, which is compared to a whiskey, which runs all day long, is a very rapid distillation. The theory behind that is if steam is coming through the bottom and hits a grain and then it vaporizes, hits the next grain and then condenses and then vaporizes, it's like having an endless plate still that allows for high purity of alcohol to come out at a very rapid pace. At a high pace. So Moutai, and in that process of that fermentation for 30 to 90 days and that distillation, that grain is reused. Because it's a super inefficient process, because it's not on liquid, it's not homogeneous, it's on solid grain, that grain is not spent. There's more grain, more starch and sugar to be extracted from that grain and more alcohol to be produced from that grain. So while there is a little bit of topping up of that grain in the Moutai process, basically that set of grain gets used, it goes through the steamer 9 times for 8 vintages. So during that year, that one grain produces basically a vintage of 8 distillations throughout the year, which gives you that year of blending stock. When you see a bottle of Baijiu that has a age range on it, usually that means it has some of that range in it, so don't be looking at a 50-year bottle of Baijiu and think it's all 50, it's some 50, but all Baijiu is blended, especially with Moutai style, because each of those distillations, as you can imagine, is quite different. As you go through the vintages or through the months of distillation, the grain becomes more caramelized. It accesses, different parts of the grain. It performs differently in the ferment. It becomes softer. It becomes, it just changes each time, because each time you're steaming it, you're cooling it, you're adding chew, you ferment it for the 30 to 45 days in the case of Moutai, and then you do that all over again. You distill it, which is just this round and round and round process that at the end of it they dispose of that grain, which is distinct from, say, strong and light aroma, which do a continuous process. But that'll be another story. So Moutai, the Moutai Prince is really sort of their reasonably entry-level bottle. This would be aged probably a minimum of 5 years. There's no age statement on this bottle because it's really like their flagship entry bottle. A bottle of Moutai in Australia at the moment is going to set you back, I think it's sitting at around $350 or $400. I got a bit of this early on when it was cheaper or a better price. Moutai prices really vary and often people buy them as an investor because they grow in value over time. So, the spirit itself. The reason it's called sauce aroma is because it has a seriously soy saucy smell to it. It's a umami, soy sauce, nutty sort of smell, and there's no added flavour. It's just the ferment flavour that's coming through. When we went to the town, the city of Moutai, you would go through the city gate to sort of go through the checkpoint, and when we cracked the windows, because it's quite warm there, so we had the window shut, but when we opened the windows, Moutai town smells like this. We were driving in and we were at the top of a valley looking down the river, and there was just factories everywhere. And the Moutai factory was the biggest facility I've ever seen in my life of any description. It looked like a massive international airport times 3. And then I asked the driver, or the people I was with, sorry, what do all the other factories do here? And they all make Baijiu. There was 2,500 distilleries making Baijiu, and the Wang family distillery that we learned to make our Baijiu at, they were making 1.25 million litres of the stuff each year, and they were like a sort of smallish family-sized distillery. They took us to meet one of their friends that, it was like, it felt a little bit like we're going to see their friend that's not going so good, and he was doing 125,000 litres. So that gives you an idea of the volume. If there's 2,500 distilleries, a smallish family-sized one's doing 1.25 million litres, it's a serious business. So, the Moutai Prince, we're going to pour some. You can see I'm pouring into a tiny little glass. This is about a 10 or 15 ml glass. This is how you would traditionally drink Baijiu. You'd be sitting at a table, this glass would be sitting in front of you full, and someone at the table would do a toast. You would say Ganbei, and then you would drink it. Ganbei means dry cup, so you literally dry your cup. So, like I said, on the nose, a lot of soy sauce and a lot of character, and all fermented flavour, no added flavours at all. And because it's aged in clay pots, there's no barrel interaction, there's no interaction from the pots except for very slow oxidisation. You can hopefully see that's a clear spirit. And flavour-wise, it packs a lot of flavour. It's almost a sweet and savoury experience. Like at the front of the experience is a little bit sweet, and then a really long, savoury mouthfeel, like a lot of that soy saucy sort of effect in the toasted nuts. It's just like, unlike anything you've had before, but absolutely amazing. So the idea with Baijiu is to drink it with a banquet, and so this complements like, a traditional Chinese banquet like nothing else. When you combine the sort of spiciness and umami flavors in the Chinese meal and you mix it with a Moutai, it's absolutely incredible. And as you develop the understanding of the Baijiu flavors, I've had some really high-end Baijius, Moutai style Baijius in China, and the flavor and the mouthfeel and the delicate, like how delicate the flavor is just amazing. And Moutai Prince is a really great example of the Moutai or sauce aroma Baijiu, and it's a great entry into understanding sauce aroma Baijiu. So that's sauce aroma Baijiu. That's the first of this collection. We learned to make our Baijiu in this style, but we actually rotate our ferment pits at Sanyu in more of a strong aroma style. So we do a continuous ferment, a continuous pit management, rather than the vintage style pit management. We felt that was, we just felt that the flavour output was more what we were looking for a Tasmanian or Australian Baijiu. So that's it for this little session. I'm going to do a few of these. I'm going to keep them rolling out, and I hope you enjoy them. If you do, chuck me a comment, give me a like or something, and I'll just keep them up. I've got a cabinet full of Baijius, and I can get access to more, so we'll keep on going. If you want to check out Sanyu and want to keep up with what we're doing here, just go to our website, sanyu.com.au, and in the next couple of months we'll be releasing a 5-year-old expression of our award-winning Baijiu, and we're really excited to share it with you, and we'd love you to come along with us. Cheers. Ganbei.